What's up, guys? Ace here brings another card of the day, and today we have Magda, Brazen Outlaw. 1 in a red, legendary creature, dwarf, berserker. Other dwarves you control get +1/+0. When a dwarf you control becomes tapped, create a treasure token. Sacrifice 5 treasures, search your library for an artifact or dragon card, put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. 2/1. I played against this card a few times, never played as it, never had it in the command zone, never played it in standard, but I've played against it. And I have to say, the card is very interesting. It's got a lot of utility outside of just being like a red creature that attacks. It definitely allows mono red to go ham, and I think the flavor is pretty spot on. So let's just talk about it. Let's just break it down. Flavor wise, I think this card is pretty sweet. Like you see Magda, and she's just riding a dragon, right? Like her, and I assume people in the back that we just can't see perhaps are just riding are on dragons, or at least behind Magda while Magda rides her dragon. I think that's super thematic. At least the dragon even looks somewhat gold plated. That's probably just the coloring, because red cards usually have to have like reddish or warm colored pictures in them. And the fact that she tutors out dragons, it's super, I guess, depictive of her art. It's a flavor wise, it's a win. I would say this is definitely a win. Practically, I think this card is pretty sweet. If you're playing an EDH and you get this card out fast enough, make sure you bring some, like, I don't know what equipment would tap it, but at least make sure you bring some vehicles. That way you can tap Magda without having to put her in harm's way to get that treasure, especially when a bunch of huge beefy big boys that can block Magda. It just comes super great to have equipment or vehicles that can tap her. So that way you get the tap treasures. It does help to have a lot of dwarves, but personally, I don't like the idea of having a chock full of dwarves. So maybe there's enough dwarves to warrant having just a bunch of dwarves in it and not function necessarily as a dwarf tribal deck. That sort of is what's needed around Magda, and that's perfectly fine. Creating mana based off of like dwarves you have, especially being at 2 mana, to cast Magda to have this effect happen is probably pretty sweet. The fact that it tutors up from the library to the battlefield is actually pretty crazy because it gets around a lot of blue crap. And I say that in a bad way because those pesky blue players, they want to counter your world gorder dragon and stuff like that. But this just puts it right through on the battlefield. So it's essentially like divvying your mana up. Like you spend the 2 mana on dwarves and you go and attack for these dwarves, for the added benefit of later being able to just, like, instead of casting the spell, the dwarf you casted prior are actually essentially like paying that spell in small payments. I like to think of it that way, anyways. And maybe you do too. Maybe that's how you guys think of it. And that's like super strong. This is definitely a super strong effect. Of course, it gets hosed by like Grafdigger's Cage, stuff like that. But in the end, you're paying 2 mana for this effect, and that's pretty strong. I think it's definitely better in the slower metas, and you're probably playing this as like a more faster deck, because then in the end you're not fighting against like creatures that can like out damage you, because generally you're gonna be playing a lot more dwarves, and so your dwarves aren't gonna be able to out damage those creatures, or outvalue them in total. So that's that. I never played it against it in standard. I can't imagine it being too good in standard because there aren't too many dwarves. There are like the 7 dwarves in standard, which could be a thing. I don't know how big of a thing it is. Am I wrong here? I hope I'm not. That's definitely going to be probably a mainstay in the Magda deck, is the 7 dwarves, because those are just 2 mana for a 2/2 that also taps to give you mana. Of course, if you have like some vehicle out, it becomes a 1 mana 2/2 because you can just tap it to crew the vehicle as soon as it comes in, so you get mana that way. There's a lot of interesting stuff you can do with this. I don't know how you take her. I think you take her more of just like a crazy strong dragons route, or maybe crazy strong artifacts that like a Blightsteel Colossus, maybe. But maybe you do something like with a knowledge pool. I don't know what you do a knowledge pool in red, but like you can go a lot of different routes with it, because the fact that you can play artifacts too means it's probably going to be a little more versatile than I might make it to believe. So that's cool. I do have to say, it dies to pretty much everything. It's a 2/1. Magda's a 2/1. So pretty rough to pretty easy rather to get rid of this thing. I do run a lot of like board wipes and stuff like that, but like even running like those 2 mana red board wipes, if you're playing like a red deck that doesn't go too heavy on creatures, like pretty easily just clears this up. Or any board wipe that sort of divvies out damage between different targets. Like dealing 1 damage to this is pretty much gonna like break a Magda deck, because it's definitely gonna be commander reliant. So yeah, anyways, tell me what you guys think about this in the comments below. Peace out, and yeah, Magna Magda, yay or nay?